What's up, guys? Welcome back to episode 213 of the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. I'm your host, Shay Haddow, and on today's episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Robyn Love, who is a Paralympian in wheelchair basketball and the Scottish #1 in wheelchair tennis. In this episode, we dive into her story as a youth athlete and how she discovered wheelchair basketball at age 23. We also talked about her superpower that helped her to navigate being made fun of at school, how confidence has played a role in her competitiveness and overall success, the importance of trusting yourself in tough situations, and so much more. So whether you're a coach, an athlete, or a parent, I know you're going to love this conversation with Robyn. It's super inspiring, so I hope that you enjoy it as much as I did. All right, catch you on the episode. Hey, what's up, Robyn? Welcome to the Alpha Girl Confidence Podcast. So excited to have you on and dive into your story. As I was doing my research, I was just like, absolutely thrilled with, where this conversation can go. So I'm so excited to have you on.
Honestly, I've been a huge fan of yours for so long, as you know, so I'm just so excited to be on the podcast and to share my journey and also talk about confidence.
I know, it's like, I feel like we've been following each other for a while, but then like we've never like had a conversation. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to ask. And so I'm so glad that I did ask, and that we're having this conversation. So I'd love to first kind of dive into your story and your athletic background and how that evolved for you, from, being a youth athlete to now being a Paralympian. And because if my research is correct, you didn't start playing parasport until like you were 22, right?
23 actually, yeah, a wee bit older. 23, yeah, first time I got in a chair. Yeah, before that, didn't know it existed, didn't know it was a thing. Yeah, so that's a whole journey before that journey. Yeah, it's craziness. So yeah, I'll just dive into it. So basically I was born with a disability. It's called arthrogryposis. Don't ask even me to spell it. I don't know. It's a I or a Y. I know that much. It's basically one of my legs is shorter than the other, and in my right leg mainly the muscles didn't form. Like I can't build them, so my squat game is 0, maybe a 2 out of 10. That maybe. But growing up, my disability didn't stop me from playing sport. Like I loved it. Like when I was younger, I played football or soccer, as you guys would call it. I loved playing football, kicking the ball against my hut. I was always out on my bike, a very active kid. I started to play tennis when I was 8, just picked up a racket and I just loved it. Growing up through school, PE was like my #1 subject. Like I loved it. I loved it so much that in Britain, like we have kind of like grades that you go through in school. It starts at like GCSEs, standard grades, and then when you're older, like 16, 17, then you do like A-levels, and I did PE at just like the practical, so I didn't have to do any theory, I didn't have to like read anything, write anything. 5 days a week I just had sport, so it was like incredible for me. So I just loved like volleyball, badminton, basketball. Absolutely love sport. Basically I wanted to actually be a PE teacher. That was like my goal, like, because I just loved it so much. I loved sharing sport, and I reflect upon it like now as an adult, and I know now that really I use sport as almost like my superpower, because growing up, like I said, I was pretty good at sport, but I had a disability, and it was, you'd look at me and think, oh, is she injured herself? Is she okay? Like the amount of times I'd be walking home from school and people would be like, stop their cars. Are you okay? You okay? And of course me, I'm like, when you're a kid, you're like, yeah, I'm fine. Don't talk to me. But yeah, so like in school, as a kid, I was like, well, if I'm better at sport than you, how am I disabled? Like, if I can beat you at badminton, beat you at basketball, beat you at volleyball, how am I disabled? What makes me disabled if I'm physically better than you at this thing? So for me, like, I didn't care that my friends would always, we say, like, slag you off, like, take the mick, or like make fun of you. So at lunchtime, I had like a big red face, and I was just like, I don't care, because I've tried so hard and I've almost like won. Like I seen it as like I won, and I took so much pride in that, and just through school, that was my superpower. And And like growing up with a disability, you'd think I'd maybe get a bit bullied, but I genuinely didn't. Maybe like once by like stupid boys, but genuinely because I think I had this superpower in my eyes. They couldn't say anything to me. So yeah, and then after school, after school, so after high school, I went to uni, or I took a year out actually, a gap year, we call it in Britain, you take a gap year. But I didn't travel to Thailand or go to Australia or go to America. I got an operation on my leg to lengthen it. So I had this big frame on, so like they broke the bone, they lengthened it. So my gap year was spent playing Mario Kart online, not being able to do very much, move very much. But I got my leg lengthened, and it honestly made a huge difference to the way I walk, to the way I stand. So for me, like, it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. Like, it was a decision that I said, I'm going to do this. Even my mum was like, oh, I don't know if you should, are you sure? Because growing up, I never had any operations, because she always asked the question, well, would she be able to play sport? Would she be able to play sport? And they couldn't guarantee her a yes. So she said, absolutely not. Why would she get something just to make her look better, but it would actually take away from her life? And then a doctor said, yeah, of course you can play sport afterwards. You'll be fine. So from there, I was 17. I was like, I'm doing this. So I took my gap year, and then at uni, I took up running basketball. It was actually like the first thing I wanted to do. I was like, I'm going to play basketball. Because I was from a small town where basketball wasn't really a thing. We played like field hockey, netball. I don't know if you know what netball is. It's
I've heard of it.
It's a really good sport. Netball, badminton, tennis, but basketball just wasn't a thing on our agenda where I was from. So straight away I was like, yes, basketball. And I just loved it. I love having a ball in my hands. I love being part of a team. I just knew like that's where I wanted to be. I don't know what it was about it. I just knew that basketball was for me. So straight away signed up, loved it, joined the club, and 2 years later I became the captain of the team, president of the club, so helping like run it. Really enjoyed that. And then it was actually one of my teammates that I was living with at the time, and she was just one day watching. It's called Channel 4 over here. It's a very popular channel. So watching Channel 4, and she just turned to me and was like, oh, could you do this? I was like, what is it? She was like, oh, that's wheelchair basketball. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I've never seen it before. What is it? And by this time, I was 22, and this was the London 2012 Paralympics. And I looked at it and was like, wow, this is amazing. This is cool. I would like this. But, I think part of me, like, still had, like, disability denial almost. Like, I was like, oh, no, I'm fine. And also, in my mind, I was like, well, it's wheelchair basketball, so you must have to be in a wheelchair to play. And that's what I thought. I thought you have to be in a wheelchair. I just walk funny. I didn't think, I could play. And it wasn't until, again, a year later that my able-bodied teammate, she was playing because she had injured her ACL. And I was like, hold on a minute. Hold on. How come you can play? Why can you play? She was like, anyone can play wheelchair basketball. And I was like, anyone can play. Oh. So I can play. And she's like, yeah, anyone can play. It's for able-bodied people. It's for disabled people. And I was like, no way. So I was like, can I come? And I signed up to this like come and try day. And I took one of my basketball teammates, Jen, who's actually from New York. She was over studying, doing a year in Scotland studying. And I was like, Jen, do you want to come to this with me? And yeah, she came with me, and we absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. And I just fell in love, to be honest. I just fell in love. I sat in a chair, like a basketball chair, and it was just like, yes, this is for me. I really enjoy this. Got stuck in. First session, I think I got like 5 blisters on my hands, but I didn't care. I was just, give me some plaster. I'm fine, doesn't matter. Boom. And from there, I was very lucky that Tina Gordon, who works with Basketball Scotland, was like, right, you come here. And she would like get me in at training. She bought me a chair, like a second-hand chair that cost like £1,000, like of her own money. she like was like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you. We want you to be I want you to be the first Scottish Paralympian in 16 years to represent like Scotland, basically, within the British team. Because there hadn't been a Scottish athlete in the GB team since like Sydney 2000. So with the Rio 2016 Paralympics coming up in the two years, that was 2014. So with the Rio 2016 Paralympics coming up, she was like, yeah, I'm going to get you in. And I'm like, who is this crazy woman? I'm like, I'm just like, no, I just really like it. Like, I just want to play. I just want to have fun. And she's like, no. And I'm like, do you know what, Tina? I'll say yes, and I'll do it for you. But true to her word, she got me down to a GB camp. And luckily, we actually had American coaches at that time. And he was just like, there's something about you, love, that I like. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I'm glad. And from there, a year later, I was on a flight to Japan to play my first tournament with GB, which is just craziness. It was just absolutely, what a place to go to your first tournament, just unbelievable, fantastic. And yeah, that was kind of like my journey into GB and journey into wheelchair basketball. Yeah,
that is like such a cool, crazy story that like, because I assume, and I think a lot of people probably assume that like you did, like you have to have like be in a wheelchair in order to play wheelchair basketball. Like that's what I thought. So this is new to me too. And it's just crazy that like I want to go back to kind of like the beginning of you as a kid, because you kept saying like, this is my superpower. And I think that's so powerful for kids who get bullied, or they're different, or, you know, they just get bullied because they just get bullied. What do you think it was? Like, do you think that was just kind of like born within you, or do you feel like it was because of your disability that you kind of like had that superpower and, you know, and had the ability to not let other people kind of like get to you?
Yeah, maybe it is partly like part of who I am. I think my mum has always been someone who said, like, just get on with it. Like, I've never been treated like I have a disability. So, you know, I think growing up, it's not something that I ever saw an issue with. And maybe having two scary big sisters definitely intimidated people into not bullying me. I'm sure that was a huge factor in it. But at the same time, I think, you know, it was just, I was so competitive in sport. And so I do think that kids, they do try and find an easy thing to bully you about. And how can you bully someone about being physically disabled if they are better than you? You know, I really don't think that they would have anything to hold on to there. And I think, like, I generally had a natural confidence growing up that I do think came from my mum, very confident woman. And like I said, I had two confident big sisters as well as those kind of role models. And I've always been kind of pushed to be more. And I think that probably had something to do with it as well. So yeah, I think kids will bully, you know, it's a thing. Adults will bully as well. You know, sport has a way of making people maybe a bit more intimidated if you're good at something, especially as a young kid. So I think that that's where I was kind of lucky.
Yeah. And I mean, I pulled a couple quotes from like an article that I read, and one of them that I absolutely loved was when you said, I didn't want people to see a difference. I wanted them to see me as better. And that, like, I wrote that down because it was so powerful, and it's a kind of a testament to your competitiveness. And I want to talk about competitiveness a little bit, because I think there is, like, a lot of people think you can't be super competitive and have fun at the same time. And I totally disagree with that, because I'm like, the more competitive I am, like, the more fun I'm having. So what are your thoughts on competitiveness versus like having fun? Like, can you do the same? Like, were those two like synonymous for you too?
Oh yeah, I love being like I go on a dog. I was just on a dog walk, for example, today with my partner Laurie, and my dog loves a tennis ball, and so we're throwing it, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna hit. Who can hit that first with the ball? So we're trying to aim for like I don't know like some kind of tree, and it's like who can hit the tree first, you know? And to me, like that's just day to day competitiveness that's fun. And then of course you take that into a sports setting. And for me, like I do see in my like basketball teams that I'm in, some people don't like it. And the more competitive it is, they get upset or, you know, they really go into themselves. Whereas I'm the annoying one with my teammates being like, la la la, never gonna get this. Like, you know, just really, just like really taking the mick out of them or, you know, trying to make them realize that it's fun. Like it's fun to be competitive. Fun that I've just scored and you didn't stop me. You know, it's fun that then you come up and be like, well, watch what I can do. You know, to me, like that's why I love basketball. That's why I love sport. Is that competitive fun?
Yeah, like when I think back to like, because I don't play anymore, but when I think back to the funnest times I've ever had in the best games, it was the ones where I was like just so like stuck in and so competitive and like and also like be like messing around with my teammates too. Like it's all like fun. We're messing around, we're having fun, we're joking with each other and giving each other a hard time. But it's like so important, I think, to be competitive. And I think too that if you are confident, it's like that kind of gives you that competitive edge. But if you're not confident, like I don't think I've ever seen someone that isn't confident yet they're really competitive. Like I think the more confident you are, the more competitive you are in a way too. Would you agree?
Oh, 100%. I think maybe you are competitive, but people can't see it, so you don't look confident, so people aren't as intimidated by you. So I think that confidence to me, if I saw someone being confident, I find it intimidating. So I think it's all in the game. It's part of the game plan as well. If you look confident, straight away you come to the court with an extra 4 points on the board because of how you look and how you present yourself. 100%.
Yeah, and that's huge. Like you said, how you present yourself. So you can walk up to the court or the field and you can have your head hung down and like people aren't going to be scared of you. But if you like have your head up, your chin up, and you're like ready to take someone out, like not in a bad way, but you're ready to like take someone out, like people are going to be a little bit intimidated by you. So I love that you brought that up, just that competitive nature, which I think is so important. Cool. So I would love to hear like when you had that surgery, again, in one of the articles I read, it was talking about how like every day you had to like go in and get something like tightened, like, and it was the super painful. Like, tell us more about that experience and how you handled that.
Yeah, God, I'm gonna have to find. You need to send me this article. I don't know. I'm coming out with these great quotes, and there's some good detail. I'm gonna have to send me it. Yeah. So I basically it's a frame that people usually get when they get into a really bad like bike crash or something, where their bones just completely come apart. So if you think about it, like my bone, like they cut it above my knee. Above my knee, and then they put a plate in there, and then below the knee they cut it as well and put like a wedge in it, and then there was this big frame around it, and every day I had to like twist these, called them struts, so I had to twist these struts that like, so the bone was like this, it pulled it apart, every day I had to twist it, and then it actually then twisted it this way, so I angled my leg this way so that it appeared straighter when I walk. So it just made me be able to stand a bit better and make my walking strike a bit better. So my leg is like, that's my knee. God, this is a good diagram. So that's my knee. And then it's kind of like this. So that's how my leg is. So it went from like this to this. And I had to like pull it apart. And it's the ones that made it like angle up the way that was just like so sore. And if you imagine, for it to be able to do that, I had pins going directly into my bone. So I just had these like open wounds like all the time that I had to like look after and make sure they're all right. Yeah, it was like craziness. But you know, I feel so lucky. You know, we have the NHS over here, which means that of course it was all free. I didn't have to pay anything, which I guess for Americans is unusual. So yeah, just when I was 17, just
For sure.
grateful that, I could do this, and it did truly make a huge impact on my life. And I guess, I don't know if this is good or not, but the fact that I then had scars afterwards, because people would always say to me when I was younger, oh, what's wrong? And because I didn't have anything to kind of show, I just felt like, oh, well, I'm just disabled, it's just shorter. Whereas when I had the scars, it was kind of I had this operation and this, and I felt like I almost accepted it more. And I don't know why. I don't know why that is. I'm sure a psychologist would like to delve into that. But yeah, that was and then I had to get it taken off. And for bone to heal, it's got to have pressure put on it. So you have to get it taken off. And then I was on crutches for 6 months. So I got it taken off in the February, and then 6 months of healing. And then I started to play basketball in the September. So, so yeah, I don't think I asked the physio's permission for that. I don't know if they would have said, yeah, that's okay or not, but I did it.
Yeah, of course. So how, I feel like so many things in your life point to you being really resilient, both physically and mentally. How are you able to handle the pain that kind of came with that? Would you attribute it to what you were talking about when you were a kid, your superpower, or was it something that was kind of built over time as far as the resilience goes?
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I think because I knew it was the right thing to do, I just felt like that was the right thing. So I trusted myself, and I don't know what gave me this overinflated sense of that I knew what was right, but I just trusted. Maybe it's because I made the decision, so I knew this is what I wanted, and I didn't care who. Even the doctors at the time were like, "Oh, this isn't going as well as we thought." Oh, and I was like, "It is going well. I don't know why you expected any different." They seem to, because part of my condition is the tendons are really tight, and they just seem to think that they would stretch the bone and the tendons would just go, "Oh, chill." But I was like, "How could you possibly expect that?" I'm saying that I didn't expect that, and I'm not educated like you are. So I think, for me, I didn't expect that at all. I didn't expect it to be perfect. I just knew it was going to be better than what it was. So for me, I think it was...
Yeah, and I think that's so powerful that it sounds like the trust in yourself and the trust in the process is what allowed you to kind of get through that physical pain. And I think it's such a bigger lesson though, with whether it's injury or something that you're working really hard for, is that if you trust yourself along the way, you're going to get to that outcome that you want. But if you start to doubt yourself and you're like, oh, this isn't right, then that's where I think a lot of people give up. So I think that's such a incredible story that so many girls listening can take away, whether they're trying to go play in college or whether they, want to be, have this career in something. It's so important over anything is to trust yourself no matter what other people are saying. So that's super cool. Yeah. Cool. So I know you I shouldn't say you found your wife. You met your wife playing wheelchair basketball. She wasn't lost. You didn't have to find her. But you met her playing wheelchair basketball. What was that like being on the same team and then dating and then being married to your teammate? That's just I would love to hear about kind of that experience.
Yeah, well, very difficult. No, I'm just kidding. So we met. My actual first senior women's camp was, I think, the December of 2014. December 2014, and we were actually rooming together, and we just got to know each other really well. It was one of these crazy camps that only an American could arrange. Where it was before Christmas you were there for 4 days, you went home for 2 days for Christmas, then you were back in, and just craziness. And we're British people, we're like, what about Boxing Day? What about this? What are you talking about coming back? And so all the girls came back, everyone got ill, and so we had to call off the camp and go home. Yeah, it was craziness. Everyone got ill because we were working so hard, ground ourselves down to the ground. You know, it was crazy. So that was my first experience of GB. But at the same time, also, I did get to know Laurie, and it was fantastic. You know, she's a great person, and she was actually at the time at Alabama University over in America. So she was there studying her masters and playing basketball in the collegiate system there. And so we did long distance for a while until the May when she got back. And of course, we did the classic lesbian thing and moved in together straight away. But to be fair, it was because we all had to move to where we were training, and one of our teammates did move in with us as well. So there was like a buffer there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there, yeah. So we did that kind of after what, 5 months of long distance, and yeah, we've just been inseparable since, really. But in terms of on the court, you know, there has been challenges. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like mainly when it's been like National League, when it's like away from GB, where both of us had to take like the responsibility, you know, where we're playing with other players who aren't at that international level. So we've got to really take control. And for me, like, I'm very like external and like, you need to do this, do this. And she's more like internal. She'll just kind of expect, because she's so good at basketball, she's amazing, but she'll just expect me to do stuff. And I'm like, you have to tell me, just say. But instead, she wouldn't. And then I would just get this side eye that she's like an expert at. But over the years, like, we gradually got much, much better just from having to communicate with each other. And just understand, like, she had to understand I'm just the way I am. And I had to accept that she was the way she is. Although I always try and get her to speak more. It's just, you know, because I just value what she says so much, and I know other people do. So I just want to encourage her to have that confidence to say so. So yeah, it's funny. I think we're literally the opposites on court, but I think we both just are so competitive that we want to win. Like, she's super competitive as well. And then at the same time in training, having someone who's able to be completely honest with you and your team, I think just takes you to that next level, because with your teammate, you don't want to upset them, you don't want to, you know. But Laurie and I had that relationship where she was like, what are you doing? You need to keep pushing. Why aren't you pushing? You know, in wheelchair basketball, a lot of people just like hip thrust to try and stop someone's chair, like, rather than pushing. I don't know what it's equivocal to. I know, but in difference in soccer, I'm not sure. But it's like, you need to just take that extra step or take that extra push. And she would always get into me about that, like, you need to keep pushing. Why aren't you doing that? And just having that honest voice, I think, for me was really helpful, especially like training full time on the run up to my first Paralympics after only playing for 1 year. Having that person to just be like, do this. For me, I don't think I would be as good as I am if I didn't have someone like her being that honest.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I think she's probably able to be so honest with you, and how you got better from that is because you were confident and you didn't take it personally, and you didn't like, you know, think, oh, she's just being mean, but you knew that she was just trying to help you, you know, to be better. So I think that's a testament to again, going back to like your confidence and how important confidence is, you know, with teammates, relationships, competitiveness, like everything. So sticking with kind of like your wife, she's expecting in April. Like, what are you most excited about to be a new mom?
Oh gosh, like, I want to just see a baby just grow and just develop. Like, I'm so excited. Like, I'm such a geek, you know, about like all the things that are going to help develop their like hand-eye coordination and like, you know, stuff like that. Like, not that I want them to necessarily just be into sports and stuff, but just like seeing how like they can move and what they can do when they're small. And I don't know if you've seen online, like, you know, like Project Serena and Project Mbappe, like when people get their tiny little babies like kicking these footballs that are on a thing, like that'll definitely be us, I think. You know, I don't know what it'll be, Project.
Oh yeah.
Not sure, girl or a boy, we'll see. But yeah, I'm super excited for all that stuff. Just to see their little personalities. Yeah, just to see their little personalities grow.
Yeah. That's so exciting. And is there anything like, what are you most nervous about too? if anything?
I think initially I'm most nervous about how the dog is going to react. Like, we have a little dog and I'm just like, oh, I don't want her to be like mean or like boop them on the face all the time or like, I don't know. Because our dog, like, she's amazing.
Yeah,
So,
I was gonna say I highly doubt. Like, I feel like dogs are always so incredibly kind and gentle with little kids. So, and your dog is adorable too. So, I think that they'll have a great relationship.
yeah, yeah, I hope so. That's the plan. But they'll definitely, Laurie like uses a wheelchair like most of the time, and so the dog is like attack. Like she sits on her lap. She's a literal lap dog, and she like paws her so that Laurie then has to pick her up and put her on her lap. Now, when there's a little tiny baby on that lap, I just know she's going to get a bit jealous. So I'm interested to see how that goes.
Yeah, there definitely might be a bit of an adjustment period for the dog that, oh no, I'm not the only child now.
I know. She can go to our nana's.
There you go. There you go. Cool. So what's next for you as far as, I know like tennis is, you're Scottish #1 in tennis too. Like what's next for you with basketball and tennis? What's coming up tournament wise for you and like Olympic wise and all that stuff?
So like immediately, I have the Women's Premier League. So in Britain, we've got a league just for women because wheelchair basketball actually at a national level is mixed men and women together, which is good, but confidence-wise, big challenge for women, huge challenge for women. So the British League came up with the Women's Premier League, which is, it's not a professional league, but it's professionally run, I would say.
Cool.
We've got coaches, nutritionists, S&C, all that kind of stuff. And there's only 4 teams in the league, but it's allowed like 60 women to like train part-time, which is just incredible. So, and a few of the games are getting shown on the BBC, the BBC channel. So it's like like television, and it's online, so people can watch it on there, which is just incredible. So that's the immediate thing that's going on just now. And last year we won the national championships with Loughborough Lightning. Cause it's funny because I know Americans struggle with Loughborough because it would be Loughborough. When you guys would probably say that right, like Edinburgh University. So it's like Loughborough.
Yeah.
Best way I can the spelling. Don't look at the spelling. Just think Luffbruh. That's Loughborough.
Okay.
That's how you'd say it.
You said it was on BBC. Can that be streamed from like anywhere in the world to watch?
I think it can be. I think it depends if you have one of those like VPN things, but I know a lot of people watch it from around the world. So yeah, it's on like, we call it iPlayer. BBC iPlayer is like the kind of app or like the website.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when does that start?
So we're a few games in, but in the BBC, I don't know if the April 1st game, I think might be the first one that's on the BBC. They only announced it yesterday. We didn't actually know that it was going to get streamed on the BBC again this year, so it's cool to see it going.
That's exciting. I'm going to have to try to watch it.
Yeah, so it's on YouTube, on the British Wheelchair Basketball YouTube. You can catch up on any of the games. And we're Loughborough Lightning. We play in purple. Yes, it's a good league. So for me, for basketball, that's my priority at the minute. So it's it's really incredible league, undefeated so far in the past year and a half. So it's pretty exciting, right? Yeah, feels good.
Congrats!
Feels good. And then in terms of tennis, I don't have any tournaments lined up yet because obviously the baby's on their way. So I guess I'm just kind of training away, enjoying it. Building my skills up, trying to gain that confidence. Because I tell you, tennis exposes it all when you're there on the court by yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a different type of challenge for you.
For sure. So tennis is like completely different, obviously, with being a individual sport. Like how is that different mentally from basketball for you?
Oh, hugely different. I get so much energy from bigging up my teammates, for supporting my teammates, for helping them. That gives me a lot of kind of drive for the game. So not having that at all in tennis, being your own teammate, I think it's taken me quite a few tournaments to realise what, not maybe my persona, I think, like when we get on the field of play, you know, what your persona is. And I think that when I initially started tennis, I thought I had to be like tennis, like a tennis player where they're just like no emotion. But I just know that that's just not who I am. So, you know, it took me a few tournaments to realise, you know, you have to just be you, which, you know, for some people, I've actually had someone laughing at me, or maybe laughing with me, but I was like, I don't care, I'm winning. So I don't care if you're laughing at me.
Love that.
You know, I'm there being like, come on, Robyn, you've got this, let's go. You need to do this, you need to make yourself successful, put yourself in a position to be successful, come on. And I'm like just talking to myself like this, like geeing myself up, because I just realised like you've got to speak to yourself how you would speak to your teammates. So I decided that that's what I wanted to do, and that's what would help me to kind of get myself in that mind frame to compete. So yeah, it's completely different. And like when I first started tennis, I just found it really awkward, because there's so much like silence and like dead time.
Yeah.
When it's just like, oh, second serve in the net, oh, I need to go and get the ball, then I need to come back. And I just found it like just so awkward. So I had to get over that initial like people waiting for you and looking at you and only you. You know, I had to really, it gave me like this like, oh, so I had to really get over that, which I did pretty quickly, but it made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that one of the things that girls, all athletes struggle with is like getting over those mistakes. And I think it's even amplified more in tennis because of that, like dead time, and because it's silent, and like no one else is like cheering you on. Like you have to be your own like coach and cheerleader. So for you to like go from basketball to that, and to be able to like, you know, adopt that like coach mentality for yourself, I think is really cool. And besides like talking to yourself and coaching yourself up, is there anything else you do in tennis, like after you make a mistake, to kind of get over that mistake and then focus on the next play?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, especially when it comes to serving, which is just a completely isolated skill that only you have an impact on. So for me, I just use like little cue words that I know help me. You know, for example, when I know when my serve is like my action is smooth, then it's better. So I'll just constantly smooth. Or if like the ball toss, for example, if I have to do that ball toss 4 times, don't care. You know, in the wheelchair game, it's a lot more difficult to get the ball toss right, because you can't just adjust your feet and hit it. You've got to really get it in the right position. So, you know, the amount of times I've like thrown the ball and it's went over my head and I've got to go and get it. It's like, you know, I think you just have to like build up like the resilience for that, and just like constantly be like, it's okay, you've got this. Nice and that's at least that's what I do. I'm constantly smooth, keep it smooth, and that's just what I do. Just have that kind of those kind of buzzwords in my head.
Yep. I'm so glad you said that. It's actually super cool, because I was working with a volleyball player the other day, and we were talking about like her overthinking. And I was like, well, what's one word you can say to yourself, like to just kind of loosen up? And she's like, smooth. And so you said the same word. So I'm like, this is so cool. Like she's right on track. So I'll have to share that with her, that she's saying the same words as an awesome Paralympian.
Yeah, I guess it's
nice.
She wants to keep you smooth, I take it, or service in volleyball.
Yeah,
because it's the same thing, isn't it? It's the same action. And the thing is
yeah, totally the same. Yeah, with the ball toss, and then the action with the shoulder, and that's very similar. Cool. So when I was doing some stalking, I noticed that you have a picture with Billie Jean King, who I absolutely love, and obviously she's one of your role models too. Like, tell me, what was it like meeting one of the greatest like tennis players, but also advocates for like women's sports and LGBTQ? Like, what was that like?
Oh my gosh, she gave me an action figure. I wish it's through in my other room, I'd get it. She just gave out these like action
picture of it now.
And I was just like, wow. I think because I went to the Billie Jean King Cup, which was in Glasgow. So I'm from a town not far from there, but I actually live about 3.5 hours away. So I went up just for the day because I got invited by Pride in Tennis, which are a fantastic organisation based in England, who try and get more LGBT tennis clubs set up. And their goal is to go to each like major tennis tournament, and when they're there, set up a club, to try and create that legacy from the tournament. And fortunately, Billie Jean King was obviously at the Billie Jean King Cup, and I knew there was a potential opportunity that I would meet her. And we were waiting all day, and I've got to drive like 3.5 hours back home to get back down the road. And I was like, oh, it's not going to happen. And then I just saw someone send a message like, oh, blah, blah, needs to come quickly. And I'm like, oh, they must be meeting her soon. They go to the toilet. And I was like, back in a minute. And then I was just floated, because I was like, I wasn't going to do it. I just said to myself, Robyn, put yourself in a position to be successful. Come on. Like, I had to like G myself up. And of course, like, I went out, and the whole reason I was there was to be an ambassador for them. And they were just like, do you want to come in? And I was like, oh, funny, what a coincidence. Yes, I would love to. So I just kind of like weaseled my way in there. And, the guys were fantastic, and they opened the door and she was there. And I was just like, oh my gosh, how amazing. Like, she's just so lovely, like an incredible person who just wants to make positive impact everywhere she goes. And, I just found it amazing, like, how she spoke to them. She was just like, what do we need to do? What needs to happen? Who do I need to call? Like, what is your goal? What's your goal? And what do you need me to do? And the guys were just like, I think they were just as starstruck as I was, and just like amazed. And I think the ultimate goal was to get a Pride Day at Wimbledon. So they wanted to get, because I think the Australian Open did it, where they had like a Pride Day. And I think that's what Billie Jean, and especially at Wimbledon, where, it's all white. So it's, a bit old school, to say the least. So I know that's something that they want to get. But I don't think the Pride in Tennis crew thought that it would be possible. But I think with Billie Jean's contacts and influence, they're hoping it will happen. So, yeah, she was just awesome. And she actually supports a South African wheelchair tennis player for her journey. Because obviously South Africa's not much support for women's sports. And there aren't many players of colour either. So, I know that Billie Jean was really keen to support her, which is fantastic. So, I heard she has some Scottish heritage, so I'm hoping that means she might want to support me as well.
That's awesome. If she supports you, then I would like you to put in a good word and have her come on the podcast.
Oh my God. I bet she would absolutely love it, because she's all about empowering women and giving them confidence. And, if I was you, I would just be spamming her Instagram with comments. That's what I would do.
I should. Like, maybe she'll eventually listen to this. So Billie Jean King, if you're listening to this podcast, I would love to have you come on the podcast. You can send me a DM at Shay Haddo on Instagram. Okay, there we go. That's the first of many spam outreaches.
Love that.
Nice. So speaking of mentors, kind of like a last big question for you. Growing up, whether when you were a kid playing sports or just now as an adult athlete, what mentors, if any, did you kind of have to look up to, or role models, as you were going through, your career as an athlete?
Gosh, it's interesting. I think growing up, I think PE teachers were always people I had looked up to. I know that we had one Miss Wilson who really backed me as like a person, as a person who loved sport. Because as well as obviously doing PE at school, like, she got me into different sport programs to get like coaching qualifications. So I think that having her as that support really, really helped me growing up. Yeah, and then kind of going into uni, I think it was more like my kind of teammates are my role models, because at uni, like, everyone's like a year or two older than me. And there was this like Portuguese player, Margarida, who she's fantastic, like, just Portuguese, like, down the line, says it how it is. And, I really value that, really appreciate that. She was confident, knew what she wanted. So I just looked at her straight away. So in British universities, we have like, you can get elected to like help run the sports. It's called like the sports union. And I was just saying to her one day, like, oh, I'd really like to do that. Oh, do you think I'd be good at that? And she was just like, yes, you would be. Do it. And I was like, hey, I will. And so I did. And I ran, the Vote Love campaign. I'm sure there's a video out there of me doing something embarrassing to get people to vote love, which sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? So I've still got Vote Love out there. And yeah, I got that role.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. I think, and then going into kind of wheelchair basketball, I think, again, I always sought out strong, confident women. Maybe it's the fact that I've got 4 sisters and my mum was such a role model in my life. I think that's just who I look to for kind of advice or people to look up to. And very fortunate that within Paralympics GB, there's a lot of female leaders. The head of it, Penny Briscoe, she's an incredible leader. So it's great that everywhere I looked, I could see more. And there was this one woman who worked with us, Lorraine, and I said to her one day, she was Scottish as well, which it's quite it's not uncommon, but there's not many Scottish people that day to day that I work with, so it's quite nice. So I was speaking to her one day, like, oh, I'd like to do this. And she kind of just said to me, it was this kind of like sports development role, and she was like, why would you reach here when you're here? Like, you need to aim here, because this is where you are.
Yeah.
Why are you aiming here? Don't do that. And I was just like, oh, wow. Like, she thinks I'm here. Cool. But I think that's the thing is, as women and girls, often we undersell ourselves and undervalue ourselves. And I think that's something that I did. Although I'm a confident person, I definitely, as someone from a small town who didn't know a lot of these kind of job roles and positions existed that are like, to me, unreachable, because we call it like working class. I come from like a working class background. Like, I just would never have imagined I'm here. I think obviously it's kept me humble all these times, but at the same time, I think it's meant that maybe I haven't reached as high as I could, or so having someone like her say that to me, I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable to have mentors that support you, but also like push you to see your past what you think you're capable of. Because for most of us, it's like like you said, we undervalue ourselves. So to have people in your life like that push you beyond what you think you're capable of is so incredibly valuable. And I know that's something that I try to do with the girls that I work with. And you, like your Instagram and everything is so inspiring. And just this conversation, I think, will really inspire a lot of girls. So thank you so much for coming on. And also, like, I'll put the YouTube to the so that girls and myself can watch you guys play. Where else kind of share like your Instagram, and where else people can kind of find you and connect with you?
Yeah, Instagram, so Robyn_Love13. Twitter's the same. Don't use Twitter as much though. TikTok, Robyn_Love13. There's some funny videos on there, but there's also a cool video of how I put this wallpaper up in the nursery.
Nice. I'll have to go watch it.
Or on LinkedIn as well. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Robyn. Make sure you guys go check out Robyn's stuff because she is an amazing human. And thanks again, Robyn, for coming on.